Hi everyone! Thank you for joining us on our session on challenging women in STEM. My name is Avani Ryan and I am a junior here at OLP. As a member of the Carondelet Circle Student Ambassadors, I have been asked to facilitate this conversation between math and computer science teacher, Mr. Cooney, math teacher, Ms. Cunningham, and a senior from the class of 2021, Caitlyn Ardonio. Mr. Cooney, as a former OLP parent and current STEM teacher here at the Academy, what stands out to you the most about an OLP education?
Hi, Avani. That's right, my daughter did graduate here 4 years ago, and she enjoyed her time here immensely, and she grew a lot, which is one of the reasons I decided to teach here. One of the things that I think OLP does a really good job is it teaches our young girls how to advocate for themselves. They learn how to seek help when they need it, but they also learn to get the tools that they can go out and grab those things that they want. They learn to go and seek out those new opportunities. We didn't have a STEM club, we didn't have a robotics club until girls got together and decided that's what they wanted. That's just OLP, right? All of our clubs are because girls want them and they go out and they form them. That's what's one of the great things about this school is we provide that freedom that allows girls to go seek their passions. It's actually one of the reasons I think that 40% of last year's graduating class went into STEM field.
So, I know you mentioned robotics, and I know that you are a mentor for this group. What is one thing that you would want outsiders to know about the robotics team?
I mean, yeah, sure, we build robots. You know, we apply those math and science skills that we learned in class. We program, we do computer-aided design, we use power tools, there's sparks flying, it's a blast, believe me. But that's not all that goes into robotics. The girls have to learn how to write grants. Robots are expensive. The girls have to then pitch those grants, so they have to interact with members of the business community. They have to market. They have to keep a budget. So these are all the kinds of skills that you learn in robotics. But I think one of the most important things is what happens when we're not successful, right? Building robots is hard. It's challenging. And sometimes we fail, and that's okay. It's what we do afterwards that's important. How do we get ourselves up, and how do we persevere? And at OLP, that's what they learn here.
Thank you so much. So, I know, Caitlyn, that you are a member of our robotics team. How did you join robotics in the first place?
So, growing up, I was always interested in STEM. My mom is a nurse and my dad is an engineer, so that really pushed me forward. I also went to the Greater San Diego Science and Engineering Fair a couple of times, so that influenced me. So when I came to OLP, I was like, oh, I should join a STEM class just for fun. So that's when I joined the robotics class. And in that class, like Mr. Cooney said, we learned how to code in Java, and we also learned how to do computer-aided design, which is CAD. And our goal for the end of the class was to build a functioning robot that we could take to competitions.
So how did competitions for robotics work?
Robotics competitions are really fun. A bunch of teams from out of San Diego come. We've had teams from Hawaii compete with us and the Netherlands. They come down to San Diego for a weekend, and in 2018 we were the first and only all-female team to compete ever, which was really shocking. At some points it did feel a little weird because many people doubted us at first. They're like, oh, an all-girl team? We've had one lady come up to us and be like, oh, did the all-boys school build your robot? Did they help you with your robot? But being a part of the team was also really rewarding as well, because we've had younger girls come up to us and be like, oh my gosh, you're so inspiring. We've never seen an all-girls team. And we've also had other high school girls come up and be like, oh, the boys don't even let me touch the robot. I'm only allowed to do marketing or graphic design. So yeah, competitions are really fun because we get to inspire a lot of other girls.
Wow, that's incredible. I heard that you had the opportunity to go to the World Championships twice. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, so in 2018, we won the All-Star Rookie Award, which is an award given to a first-year team that's well-rounded. And yeah, that was our ticket to World Championships in Houston, Texas. We got to compete with about 700 teams from all over the world, from like 40 different countries, and we competed with like the best teams in the world too. We won again in 2019. And it was really fun. I was opened up to a lot of STEM things I've never seen in my life. And yeah, it was a really cool experience.
What has been your favorite part about the team?
There are many great parts about being on an all-girls team, but I'd say my favorite part is definitely just being on an all-female team in general. You don't really see a bunch of those in the robotics field because it's so like male-dominated, but again, anything we do at competitions, it feels so empowering. So yeah, whenever competition season rolls around, it's always my favorite thing. And like I said before, I really like when younger elementary school girls come up to us too.
How has the program changed since you've been a part of it all throughout high school?
In 2018, I think there were about like 13 girls that went to Worlds. And the robotics program wasn't really that big, but once we like got all famous, I guess, a bunch of people decided to join, and it's turned into such a bigger thing. So I think right now we have about 40 girls.
Ms. Cunningham, what inspired you to want to teach STEM specifically in an all-girls school?
Well, I think starting with the idea of even wanting to teach STEM, I think for me, I have always loved math. Like, you could have asked me in second grade, you could have asked me in 12th grade, and math was my favorite subject. There was no question there. So when I was getting ready to go off to college, I truly don't even remember thinking about it. I just knew that I was going to be a math major, and it was almost like I didn't have another option. Like, there was no other path for me. So I went to college and I was studying math, and it was the first time I kind of sat back and looked at it and looked at who I was surrounded by, and I actually noticed that I was in the minority. There were not a lot of girls in the major with me. It was a lot of men. And I'd never really thought about that, I don't think. I went to co-ed school my whole life, but it was something that I had never processed as like, oh, not as many girls do this. And now I was in this college setting, and that was what I was seeing. And so it was something that really fascinated me. And I kind of wanted to be able to learn a little bit more about it. So when I finished my bachelor's degree and I started to pursue my master's, I really decided that that's what I wanted my thesis to focus on, was this like disparity of gender in the STEM field. So I was studying gender stereotypes and why they exist, because I think that was my big question, was why is it like this? Because I think for a lot of us, this idea that like girls aren't as good at math, you think that's so outdated, and nobody thinks like that anymore. And yet here I was surrounded by guys, and it wasn't that long ago. So I really wanted to study like why is this happening? And so I did my whole master's thesis, and I spent so much time, and I did all this research, and it was so interesting to me. And then as soon as I finished that, I got presented with the opportunity to teach in this all-girls school, OLP. And it was kind of one of those things that, again, was just obvious. Like, oh, well, I just studied this for so long. Like, I should probably teach here. This makes so much sense. And I think for me, it's just about, like, there's a part of me that always hopes that I can inspire young girls to also want to pursue STEM as young women in the field. I think that was something that was big for me.
That's so inspiring. How do you think OLP is combating some of the classic gender stereotypes you saw in your research?
That's a really good question. I think one of my favorite or most interesting things that I was learning while I was doing my research was surrounding this idea of an individual's sense of belonging really being tied to the kind of people or the group that you're viewing. So for example, if we're talking about a gender stereotype in the STEM field, as a young woman, if you look at a career in STEM or in math or whatever part of that you want to, you're typically going to see a career or a field that is mainly men. And human beings just kind of have this innate sense where when you see something like that and you don't feel like those people look like you, or you don't feel like you would fit in there, then you don't want to pursue something like that. And it's kind of just not even something we acknowledge or we say out loud. It's just kind of a feeling that you have. And that was one of the things that I was looking into while I was doing my research. And I think that is what is actually so fascinating about OLP, because that's not really the situation here. That is not what our girls see. We get the opportunity to kind of change that narrative. We have things like Women's Symposium, where there's only women in the fields coming in, and our girls get to sit there and watch them talk about all this stuff. And like a lot of them are STEM, but they're not all STEM. But the cool part is that you look up on that stage and there's not one guy sitting up there. Our girls are only seeing women in these fields. And it kind of starts to push against all of that research I was doing, because now why should I feel that I don't belong there? I'm looking at these women and they look like me and they experience things that I did. And now it kind of does create this sense of belonging. This is something that I could also be a part of because these people look like me. And that's not even just with professionals. We get to watch our alums go do awesome things. We get to watch our own students take part in such amazing opportunities and internships and all of these programs that are awesome. And again, every single one of them is a girl. So it really pushes against all of that research, and we get to set our own tone of what every single one of those fields looks like.
Speaking of students who show interest in STEM internships, Caitlyn, what are some STEM programs or opportunities that you have been able to pursue outside of robotics and your academics at OLP?
Yeah, so I've actually participated in a couple programs. My first one I took on in the summer before junior year. I actually found it through the OLP bulletin board, so that's kind of funny. It's called ROSA, and it stands for the Reproductive and Oncofertility Science Academy for Girls at UC San Diego. It's a pre-college program. And I had to send in an application, I had to get interviewed, and they accept about 10 high school girls from all over San Diego for 6 weeks. So over those 6 weeks, I got to look at oncofertility, which is a new field of science that goes over the fertility of young cancer patients. And I also learned about reproductive biology and cancer biology. And I also got to go to some really cool institutions that not that many people have the opportunity to go to. I got to tour the Children's Hospital of Orange County. I also went to the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, and I got to do a bunch of labs with all of the scientists over there. And I also went to my favorite place that I went to, which is Moore's Cancer Center in La Jolla. And over there I got to meet some really cool surgeons, some really cool genetic counselors, which is a field that I'm currently looking at. And I also got to present a research project that I did over the 6 weeks to professors at UC San Diego, which was really scary for a junior in high school to do. But again, OLP gave me that opportunity, so I had to take it. But yeah, my second thing that I did was because one of my science programs got canceled due to the pandemic and stuff. So me and my friend from Berkeley and a couple of other people from UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, MIT, all of those colleges, we got together to do a COVID-19 student research task force, which is all online. We went on Zoom, and then we decided to put together some scientific articles that talked about realistic COVID facts, because in the news you see a lot of fake statistics, so we decided to take upon that role and fix what was wrong. But yeah, that was a really cool program that I was a part of too.
Wow, you mentioned so many things that you were involved in. How do you find time to pursue all these passions and balance academics and other extracurriculars?
It's definitely surprising that I was able to do a bunch of these cool things, but It definitely takes a lot of thinking. When I was a freshman, I wanted to join about like 100 clubs, and I had to tell myself that it's not good for me. I had to pick what I truly loved. And as a freshman, it's really hard to realize that you need to prioritize what means the most to you. So for me, that's STEM and VAPA. Also at OLP, they have a really good support system, and whenever I needed help, I reached out to the faculty and staff. Like for some reason, I'm able to manage being like a captain on dance team with a captain on robotics, and I don't think you can do that anywhere else. So yeah, OLP is the place to be if you want to pursue your passions.
In closing, thank you again for joining us for this important topic. Being a women's institution, it is important for OLP to be a part of the solution to closing the gender gap that exists in STEM majors and careers. We do this by exposing our students to these fields through our amazing faculty, like the ones who joined us today. Thank you, panelists, for your time and your dedication to our school community.